as quickly and safely as possible. Corporate Communications Manager at Gridco, Jifa Bampo, says a technical investigation to determine the cause of the disturbance is underway.
We'd like to apologize for this incident. It's a rare one, not one that occurs often, and so we sincerely apologize for everyone who is impacted, whether they're a consumer or a business owner. Currently, we know that restoration is ongoing. It's been ongoing since the early dawn. We've picked some load, I understand, from the Akosombo generating station. There's the need, obviously, to pick more load. And so that work is ongoing. Efforts are underway. So the system control center is working with our partner stations, like our substations across the country. We have about 68 of them. And we're also working with the generating stations to restore them, bring them on stream as soon as possible so that we can supply bulk power to ECG, and then ECG can onward distribute nationwide. So it's a painstaking process. There are protocols required to do this work, and we urge the public to have some patience for us whilst the engineers do this work, which is currently ongoing. And once again, we sincerely apologize for what has occurred. I don't have the full details of how wide, but based on the information we've gathered, it's widespread. It's more beyond us here in Accra.
That was Director of Communications for Gridco, Jifa Bampo there. Now, the Ashanti Regional Health Directorate is warning that an estimated 500,000 people in the region are living with chronic hepatitis B, with many unaware they are infected. Health authorities say the silent nature of the disease is putting more lives at risk and is urging the public to go for early screening and vaccination. There's more in this report.
For many people living with hepatitis B, there may be no obvious warning signs. But health authorities say behind the silence is a disease that can lead to serious complications, including liver cancer. And in the Ashanti region, the scale of the problem is raising concern. Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng is the Regional Director of Ghana Health Services.
When we come to Ashanti region, it's estimated that at least about 500,000 people are living with chronic hepatitis B. The issue that we are having, the challenge, that most of these people do not even know their status. That is the challenge. And then this also juxtaposed with a long incubation period. When somebody is having hepatitis, it will take at least about 1 to 4 months. In some cases, it's more than even 4 months before they start showing signs and symptoms of hepatitis B. So it means that it's important that at least we have ways of addressing and picking it.
Dr. Adomako-Boateng is therefore calling for aggressive screening, vaccination, and early linkage to treatment.
The first thing that we do as a service, Ghana Health Service, every pregnant woman is screened, because that is one of the leading causes of transmission from mother to childhood during childbirth or during breastfeeding. The second one that we do is that before a child is 1 year, they are vaccinated with hepatitis B, because that's, if you're able to do that for almost every population of a cohort, following that, we believe that hepatitis B will be eliminated. It's not only enough to pick people who have the problem, but not link them to care. And the Ghana Health Service is also making ways that all these treatments will be affordable when it comes to people who are having the problem.
The district chief executive for Adansi North,
it's not only enough to pick people who have the problem, but not link them to care.
And the for their health. Also called on the public to take
the health sector in the district, and also economically it also has a burden on the district. Stresses the health in the sector in the district, economically also has a burden on the district.
For health authorities, the message is simple: know your status, get vaccinated where eligible, and seek care early.
And that is it. Know your status, get vaccination where eligible, and seek care early. Let's go to Parliament before we take leave of you, because the House has passed the Excise Bill 2026, which seeks to abolish excise taxes on locally manufactured fruit juices. The legislation provides a framework for the imposition and collection of excise duty on selected imported and locally manufactured excisable goods. It also makes provision for the excise tax stamp and the requirement for such stamps to be affixed to excisable product. Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyako Ampem outlined the key objectives of the bill on the floor of Parliament.
The other thing we are seeking to do is to introduce a sliding scale for use of raw materials so that we can encourage the use of local raw materials in the manufacture of beer and other drinks so that the more raw materials you source locally to produce, the rate of excise duty goes down. That is also being maintained in this bill. We are removing taxes on juices, local juice that are produced here. And so our Blue Skies, Ekumfi juice factory will all be zero rated. And that will bring the prices low, and it will encourage us to shift from the consumption of alcohol to fruit juices, because we want to promote good health.
Deputy Finance Minister Dakwampim there. Well, this week when I spoke to the Federation of Beverages Manufacturers, they said that they are also looking forward to reducing the cost of your favorite fruit juice. And so you know what to do. Hopefully by November they tell us the cost of your favorite fruit juice, locally produced, is going down and you can keep enjoying them. That is how we end the midday news on 3FM 92.7. It came to you live from our studios here at Adesawe Kanda, Accra. My name is Grace Hamwa Ajiman. Bismarck Ewusa is standing by to bring us the latest in the world of business. Don't go away. Stay with us.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Fitch Solutions forecasts inflation to climb to 9% by end of 2026 as CD weakens, while government stands by 5% year-end target. We'll hear from the UK firm's Associate Director, Mike Kreiniger.
Imported price pressures will become more pronounced, and that's going to push inflation higher, overtaking the Bank of Ghana's target range in early 2027.
Also ahead, finance expert Joe Jackson warns political pressure and overspending could derail Ghana's post-IMF economic gains.
Encourage the private sector to do the investment to create the jobs, to do the investment to grow the economy, to do the investment to keep our CD stable and interest rates low.
Plus, Parliament approves Excise Bill 2026, abolishes excise duty on locally produced fruit juices, and introduces incentive-based tax system to promote local raw materials, agro-processing, and healthier consumer choices.
The other thing we are seeking to do is to introduce a sliding scale for use of raw materials so that we can encourage the use of local raw materials in the manufacture of beer and other drinks.
Ahead, we'll hear from Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyako Ampem. We'll bring you details of our headlines and other stories shortly. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Global research firm Fitch Solutions is projecting a rebound in Ghana's inflation in the months ahead, forecasting it will end 2026 at 9%, well above the government's 5% target. The firm attributes the expected rise to a weakening cedi, even as it maintains a positive outlook for Ghana's economic growth and fiscal performance. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report. Fitch Solutions, the research arm of global ratings agency Fitch, is forecasting that Ghana's inflation will rise to 9% by the end of 2026, citing an expected depreciation of the cedi in the coming months. Associate Director Mike Kriniger says the recent sharp decline in inflation was largely supported by the cedi's strong performance, but that trend is unlikely to continue following the Bank of Ghana's latest policy stance.
The cedi is now weaker year on year. Now, what this means is that imported price pressures will become more pronounced, and that's going to push inflation higher, overtaking the Bank of Ghana's target range in early 2027, and also reinforcing our view that economic growth is going to cool a little bit next year.
The forecast is significantly above the Finance Ministry's projection of 5% inflation by year end. However, technical advisor at the ministry, Dr. Theo Champo, insists government remains confident inflation will finish the year within its target range of 8% plus or minus 2 percentage points, supported by prudent fiscal management and disciplined public spending.
We have no cause to believe that inflation, even if conflict escalates further in the Middle East, would end the year going above the band. We've done quite a lot of work around that.
Looking beyond this year, Fitch Solutions expects inflation to rise further to 13.2% in 2027 on the back of stronger domestic demand, imported inflation from a weaker cedi, and higher food prices linked to El Nino weather conditions. Despite the inflation outlook, the firm remains optimistic about Ghana's economy, projecting growth of 5.7% this year, driven by resilient domestic demand, strong mining activity, and high gold prices, while describing government's fiscal consolidation program as broadly credible. And that was a report on Fitch Solutions forecasting inflation to climb to 9% by the end of 2026 as the cedi weakens. Now, Chief Executive of Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, has urged government to allow the private sector to flourish and lead Ghana's economic transformation. He cautions that the country's new 36-month non-bailout policy coordination instrument, PCI, with the IMF faces serious political risk. Speaking to 3 Business following the completion of the extended credit facility, Joe Jackson said any attempts by government to bow to pressure and overspend could undermine the economic gains made under the IMF program.
And the risk is not just from within the ruling regime. It's from the public. It's from you and I. The unions say, if things are good, let us feel it in our pocket too. That is the risk. The risk is that even the opposition is crying out, but if you say things are good, why are you not spending? And that is the problem. That's the political risk. Election promises, wage pressures, subsidies. They say, electricity is going up, subsidize it. Fuel is going up, subsidize it. And all the different programs that are political. This is where we should be careful. The important thing is that the government should stay in its space, be prudent with its finances, spend only money that it has, and encourage the private sector to do the investment to create the jobs, to do the investment to grow the economy, to do the investment to keep our cedi stable and interest rates low.
And that was finance expert and chief executive of Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson. Meanwhile, economist Professor Godfred Bopin is urging the government to review Ghana's fiscal rules to create more room for borrowing to finance critical infrastructure, arguing that the country's long-term debt target could constrain economic growth. His call follows the introduction of new fiscal responsibility rules under the Public Financial Management Amendment Act 2025.
The amended law requires government to reduce and maintain public debt at or below 45% of GDP by 2035. It also requires the government to maintain an annual primary surplus of at least 1.5% of GDP to support debt reduction and strengthen fiscal discipline. While government has reaffirmed its commitment to these fiscal targets, Professor Bobkin argues that the debt rule should be reviewed to provide greater fiscal space for investment in roads, energy, education, and other critical infrastructure. He was speaking at a post-media budget forum organized by the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
The 1.5% is in the law, is in the Act. So that has to be amended for them to be able to do lower than that. Then also the 45% is in the law. So in order for us to increase that, we also need to what? Amend that. Now we have greater fiscal space, very expensive. How do we utilize that fiscal space for growth enhancing what? Spending, so that for every CD that we spend, every dollar that we spend, we get the highest what? Value. That is where development will come from.
The president of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Stefan Abbas Miezan, also criticized the government's failure to address the recent rise in fuel prices during the mid-year budget presentation, saying businesses continue to face mounting operating costs.
It was really disappointing, but it is also quite understanding. But it's understanding because of the geopolitics. But notwithstanding, we know that the government is trying to look at we actually refining our own crude, of which Centio and then Tor has been brought on board. We need to actually strengthen that so that at least benefits to the people can be realized.
And that was a report by my colleague Michael Obudu. Before we go, Parliament has approved the Excise Bill 2026, abolishing excise duty on locally manufactured fruit juices in a move expected to make the products more affordable, promote healthier consumption, and support the growth of Ghana's agro-processing industry. The new law also introduces an incentive-based excise tax regime for beer and other beverages, with lower tax rates tied to the use of locally sourced raw materials, while maintaining the mandatory excise tax stamp system to strengthen tax compliance and improve domestic revenue mobilization. Deputy Minister for Finance, Thomas Nyako Ampem, presented a bill in Parliament on Tuesday, July 28, 2026.
The other thing we are seeking to do is to introduce a sliding scale for use of raw materials so that we can encourage the use of local raw materials in the manufacture of beer and other drinks, so that the more raw materials you source locally to produce, the rate of excise duty goes down. That is also being maintained in this bill. We are removing taxes on juices, local juice that are produced here. And so our Blue Skies, a Kumfi juice factory will all be zero rated, and that will bring the prices low, and it will encourage us to shift from the consumption of alcohol to fruit juices because we want to promote good health.
Thomas Nyako Ampem ends Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. Urban Blend is next with Black Rasta. Please stay.